On a quiet Australian night in May 2016, 46-year-old Cindy Lee Waldron stepped into the shallow waters of a moonlit beach with her closest friend. What was meant to be a playful moment under the stars turned into an unthinkable nightmare. From the darkness of the water, a massive saltwater crocodile surged forward, silent, swift, and merciless. Her screams echoed across the shoreline, carrying both terror and disbelief. In a matter of seconds, a life full of laughter, love, and dreams was violently stolen. This wasn't just an accident, it was a tragedy that shook the world. Cindy Lee Waldron was a vibrant, adventurous woman whose love for life was felt by everyone around her. Born in New Zealand, she had a deep passion for photography, travel, and nature, always chasing beauty in the world. In May 2016, she was visiting Queensland, Australia, with her best friend, embarking on a trip meant for laughter, bonding, and unforgettable memories. That night, the two friends wandered along Thornton Beach, unaware that the calm waters concealed one of nature's deadliest predators. Despite repeated warnings about saltwater crocodiles in the area, the danger felt distant, almost unreal, until it struck without mercy. Cindy's sudden and tragic death became an international headline, not just because of the horror of the attack, but because it served as a chilling reminder of how fragile life can be when humans cross paths with the untamed power of nature. Cindy's background. Before the tragedy that made her name known around the world, Cindy Lee Waldron was simply a woman filled with warmth, creativity, and a free spirit. Born in New Zealand, she grew up surrounded by a close-knit family who remembered her as compassionate, adventurous, and full of laughter. Friends described Cindy as someone who lit up any room she entered. She had that rare ability to make people feel comfortable, valued, and seen. Her passion for photography reflected the way she looked at life, through a lens of curiosity and appreciation. She believed in capturing moments, not just with her camera, but with her heart. From a young age, Cindy was drawn to travel. She loved discovering new places, meeting new people, and immersing herself in the natural world. She wasn't the type to shy away from risk. Adventure called to her, and she answered eagerly. Those who knew her often said she had a gypsy soul, never content to stay in one place for too long, always searching for beauty and meaning in her journeys. Yet, despite her wandering nature, Cindy's deepest roots were always in the people she loved. Her family remained her anchor, and her friendships were bonds she cherished deeply. At the time of her fateful trip, Cindy was living in Australia but often traveled back and forth between there and New Zealand. She had built a life filled with creativity, spending her days working on photography projects and enjoying the freedom that came with her independent lifestyle. But what made her happiest were the connections she shared, especially with her best friend, Leanne Mitchell. The two women had known each other since childhood, sharing not just memories but also dreams and challenges. Their bond was more like sisters than friends, and their companionship brought them both comfort and joy. It was with Leanne that Cindy decided to take a short holiday to far north Queensland. The two wanted to escape the routines of everyday life and spend time in a place where the rainforest met the sea. They had no idea that their journey would end in heartbreak. For Cindy, this was supposed to be another adventure, a chance to laugh, to relax, and to marvel at the wild beauty of Australia. Looking back, her family and friends remember Cindy not by the way her life ended, but by the vibrancy with which she lived. She was the type of person who believed life was too short to be ordinary. Her story reminds us that behind every tragic headline lies a real person, someone who loved, who dreamed, and who was deeply loved in return. Cindy Lee Waldron was more than a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, and a woman whose spirit still inspires those who knew her best. Setting the scene. Far North Queensland is one of the most breathtaking regions in Australia, a place where dense, green rainforests spill into golden beaches, and the coral sea stretches endlessly toward the horizon. It is paradise at first glance, a destination that attracts tourists from around the world who come searching for beauty, relaxation, and a touch of adventure. But hidden beneath that natural beauty lies a darker truth. this part of Australia is also home to the saltwater crocodile, the largest and most dangerous reptile on Earth. Locals know the risks well, and warnings are placed on beaches and rivers to remind visitors that danger can strike when least expected. In May 2016, Cindy and her lifelong friend, Leanne Mitchell, arrived in this idyllic region, eager to soak in its magic. They were staying near Thornton Beach, a stretch of sand just south of the Daintree National Park, where the rainforest meets the ocean in dramatic fashion. The area is popular among tourists who want to escape the crowds and enjoy the wild, untouched landscape. That evening, after sharing dinner and laughter, the two friends decided to take a moonlit walk along the beach. The air was warm, the night sky was lit with stars, and the ocean's rhythm was calm and inviting. To Cindy and Leanne, the beach seemed safe and peaceful. The warnings about crocodiles, signs posted along the shoreline, felt distant, almost like background noise. After all, in that moment of serenity, who could imagine a predator lurking in the shadows? Tourists often underestimate just how close danger can be in northern Australia, and Cindy and Leanne were no different. They weren't reckless, they were simply caught in the illusion of safety that beautiful landscapes can create. The women walked along the water's edge, enjoying the stillness of the night, the soft sand beneath their feet, and the cool sea breeze brushing against their skin. They laughed and talked as best friends do, reminiscing about childhood, sharing stories, and appreciating the freedom of being far from their daily routines. At one point, they decided to wade into the shallow water, letting the waves wash over their legs. It felt playful, harmless, and spontaneous, a simple act that would soon lead to tragedy. What they couldn't see was the lurking presence just beyond the shoreline. Saltwater crocodiles are masters of stealth, able to remain almost invisible as they stalk their prey. With eyes barely above the water, their massive bodies hidden in the depths, they wait silently for the perfect moment to strike. That night, one of these predators was watching Cindy and Leanne, moving closer as they stepped deeper into the water. The stage was set for horror. What began as a night of joy and friendship on one of Australia's most picturesque beaches was about to become the scene of a nightmare. In the silence of the tropics, where the rainforest and ocean meet, two friends stood unaware that a predator older than time itself was about to change everything. The calm of that tropical night shattered in an instant. One moment Cindy Lee Waldron and her best friend, Leanne Mitchell, were laughing in the shallows of Thornton Beach, and the next, chaos erupted. Out of the dark water, a massive saltwater crocodile lunged forward with terrifying speed. These predators are ambush hunters, capable of explosive power, and in seconds, the peaceful shoreline became a scene of panic and horror. Leanne later recalled that Cindy barely had time to react. A sudden splash, a deep growl-like sound from the water, and then the crocodile's jaws clamped down on Cindy with brutal force. Her scream pierced the night, echoing across the beach, a sound filled with both shock and agony. Leanne, only a few feet away, tried desperately to help. She shouted, splashed, and reached out, but the predator was too strong, too swift. Cindy struggled, thrashing against the water, but the crocodile began dragging her away from the shore with relentless determination. Saltwater crocodiles are notorious for their death roll, a violent spinning motion designed to disorient and drown their prey. Though Leanne fought to hold on to her friend, the sheer power of the reptile was overwhelming. In a matter of seconds, Cindy was pulled further into the black water. The struggle was desperate and heartbreaking. Leanne clung to Cindy's arm, screaming for help, refusing to let go. But the crocodile's strength was unmatched. Its massive body twisted in the water, and Cindy slipped from her friend's grasp, swallowed by the sea and the predator's jaws. Witnesses nearby heard the screams and rushed toward the sound, but by then, the attack had already taken its course. The beach, once serene under the moonlight, now felt like a place of horror. Leanne, trembling and drenched, stood in shock, screaming Cindy's name into the darkness. Her cries carried a haunting truth: her best friend had been taken before her eyes. Crocodile attacks happen so quickly that even the strongest swimmers and the bravest rescuers are often powerless. These ancient predators rely on surprise, and once they latch onto their target, survival is almost impossible. For Cindy, the attack was merciless, leaving her loved ones and the world stunned by the sheer brutality of nature. What made the tragedy even more unbearable was the helplessness of the moment. Leanne's grief was compounded by the fact that she had been there, fighting, screaming, and begging for her friend's life, only to see her disappear into the night. The bond of sisterhood they had shared since childhood was broken in the most violent way imaginable. That night on Thornton Beach became more than just a horrifying accident. It was the kind of moment that etches itself permanently into memory, a reminder of the razor-thin line between beauty and danger in the wild. Cindy Lee Waldron's final moments were filled with courage, resistance, and love, as she fought to survive and as her best friend refused to let go until the very end. The aftermath. The silence that followed Cindy's disappearance into the dark waters was deafening. For Leanne Mitchell, her best friend and witness to the tragedy, those moments were filled with shock, disbelief, and an unbearable sense of helplessness. Staggering back onto the sand, drenched and trembling, she screamed for help, her voice carrying across the empty beach. The serenity of the night had been shattered, replaced with panic and horror. Locals and nearby tourists rushed to the scene after hearing the commotion. Some carried flashlights, others their phones, but all of them were gripped by the same terrible realization: a crocodile attack had just unfolded before their eyes. Emergency services were called immediately, and within minutes, police and wildlife officers were mobilized. Helicopters and boats were dispatched to scour the shoreline and waters near Thornton Beach, but the vast, murky environment gave the predator a terrifying advantage. As news of the incident spread, the small community surrounding the Daintree rainforest was shaken to its core. Residents were no strangers to crocodiles, they had lived alongside them for generations, but a fatal attack so close to a public beach was a chilling reminder of just how unpredictable and lethal these creatures could be. Conversations that night shifted from shock to sorrow, and from sorrow to questions. Could this have been prevented? Were the warnings enough? Why had such a vibrant life been taken in such a cruel manner? For Leanne, the aftermath was even more devastating. She was placed under medical care, not only for shock and exhaustion, but also for the emotional trauma of witnessing her best friend dragged away in front of her. Her testimony to the authorities painted a vivid picture of the attack, and her words, filled with grief, became the backbone of the investigation. She described the suddenness, the violence, and the sheer power of the crocodile, details that would haunt her for years to come. Search operations continued tirelessly over the following days. Wildlife rangers monitored the area, and traps were set in an attempt to capture the crocodile responsible. Forensic teams scoured the shoreline for any sign of Cindy. The sheer scale of the search reflected both the urgency to bring closure to Cindy's family and the community's determination to understand what had happened. Sadly, recovery missions in such cases are almost always grim. The crocodile, once it had claimed its prey, retreated into its natural hunting grounds, leaving behind only fragments of evidence. As news of the incident spread, the small community surrounding the Daintree rainforest was shaken to its core. Residents were no strangers to crocodiles, they had lived alongside them for generations, but a fatal attack so close to a public beach was a chilling reminder of just how unpredictable and lethal these creatures could be. Conversations that night shifted from shock to sorrow, and from sorrow to questions. Could this have been prevented? Were the warnings enough? Why had such a vibrant life been taken in such a cruel manner? For Leanne, the aftermath was even more devastating. She was placed under medical care, not only for shock and exhaustion, but also for the emotional trauma of witnessing her best friend dragged away in front of her. Her testimony to the authorities painted a vivid picture of the attack, and her words, filled with grief, became the backbone of the investigation. She described the suddenness, the violence, and the sheer power of the crocodile, details that would haunt her for years to come. Search operations continued tirelessly over the following days. Wildlife rangers monitored the area, and traps were set in an attempt to capture the crocodile responsible. Forensic teams scoured the shoreline for any sign of Cindy. The sheer scale of the search reflected both the urgency to bring closure to Cindy's family and the community's determination to understand what had happened. Sadly, recovery missions in such cases are almost always grim. The crocodile, once it had claimed its prey, retreated into its natural hunting grounds, leaving behind only fragments of evidence. The media quickly descended on Thornton Beach, and Cindy's story spread far beyond the small Queensland community. Headlines around the world told of the tourist taken by a crocodile, of a best friend's desperate attempt to save her, and of the dangers lurking in paradise. For many, the story was a haunting reminder that nature, no matter how beautiful, demands respect and caution. In the days that followed, vigils were held. Locals and tourists alike gathered to honor Cindy's memory, laying flowers by the beach where she had last been seen. Her family, devastated by the loss, called for answers, accountability, and above all, recognition of Cindy not just as a victim, but as a woman whose life had been stolen too soon. The aftermath of the attack was not only a personal tragedy, it was a national reckoning, forcing people to confront the raw and often unforgiving reality of life in crocodile country. Crocodile dangers in Australia. Australia's tropical north is often described as paradise, lush rainforests, turquoise seas, and wildlife unlike anywhere else on Earth. But hidden in these landscapes is a predator that has ruled for millions of years, the saltwater crocodile. Locals call them salties, and while they are respected as symbols of raw, ancient power, they are also feared, for good reason. These crocodiles are not just the largest reptiles in the world, they are apex predators capable of killing almost anything that enters their territory, including humans. Saltwater crocodiles can grow over 20 feet long and weigh more than a ton. With jaws strong enough to crush bone and a hunting strategy perfected over millennia, they are unmatched in their environment. What makes them especially dangerous is their stealth. They can remain completely still for hours, their eyes and nostrils barely above water, waiting for the right moment. When they strike, they do so with lightning speed, leaving their prey almost no chance to escape. For communities in Queensland and the Northern Territory, crocodiles are a part of daily life. Warning signs are common near beaches, rivers, and estuaries, reminding both locals and tourists that these waters are not always safe. Authorities constantly urge visitors never to swim in areas known for crocodile activity, especially at night, when the reptiles are most active. Despite this, attacks continue to occur, usually because people underestimate the risk or assume danger is far away. Cindy Lee Waldron's tragedy was not the first in Australia, nor would it be the last. In the years before her death, there had been multiple fatal attacks, each leaving communities devastated and sparking national debates about safety. Some locals argue that tourists are not properly educated about the real dangers, while others believe that crocodiles, as protected species, have been allowed to thrive too close to human settlements. Conservation efforts in recent decades have indeed caused crocodile populations to rebound, leading to more frequent human encounters. The attack on Cindy also reignited conversations about the balance between nature and human activity. Should crocodiles in popular tourist areas be relocated or culled to reduce the risk? Or should humans bear the responsibility of respecting crocodile territory and exercising greater caution? These questions stirred passionate responses. Wildlife advocates insisted that crocodiles were simply doing what they have always done, surviving as predators in their natural habitat. Others, particularly grieving families, argued that more must be done to prevent tragedies like Cindy's. What cannot be denied is that saltwater crocodiles represent one of the greatest dangers in northern Australia. They remind everyone that even in places of stunning beauty, danger lurks beneath the surface. The story of Cindy's death became another stark warning in a long history of crocodile attacks, an undeniable truth that these creatures are not to be underestimated. For tourists unfamiliar with the risks, Cindy's fate is a chilling lesson. For locals, it is a tragic confirmation of what they already know. In crocodile country, the margin for error is razor thin, and respect for nature is not optional, it is a matter of survival. Family's grief and legacy. For Cindy Lee Waldron's family, the days and weeks following the tragedy were filled with an anguish that words could hardly capture. The shock of losing a daughter, a sister, and a beloved friend in such a violent way was almost unbearable. When the news reached New Zealand, where Cindy had been born and raised, her family was devastated. They spoke of her as someone whose smile could light up even the darkest room, a woman who carried kindness and warmth wherever she went. Her parents described Cindy as adventurous but grounded, a free spirit who always stayed connected to those she loved. Friends echoed these sentiments, remembering her not only for her love of travel and photography but also for her ability to make others feel valued. For them, the headlines of a crocodile attack stripped away the truth of who she really was. She wasn't just a victim of nature's fury, she was a vibrant soul whose life had meaning far beyond her tragic end. In interviews, her family expressed frustration and heartbreak, questioning whether enough was done to warn visitors about the dangers in the area. Signs were present at Thornton Beach, but they felt the risks were downplayed, and that more awareness could have prevented Cindy's death. Their grief was not only personal but also fueled by a need for accountability. To ensure no other family would endure the same pain, tributes began to pour in from across the world. Friends, former classmates, colleagues, and even strangers who read her story shared condolences, sending messages of love and support. Candlelight vigils were held both in Australia and in New Zealand, with communities gathering to honor Cindy's life. Photographs she had taken during her travels were shared online, showcasing her eye for beauty and her deep appreciation for the world around her. These images became a symbol of who she was, someone who sought to find light in every corner of the earth. For Leanne Mitchell, Cindy's lifelong friend and witness to the attack, the grief was compounded by trauma. She carried the memory of that night, the sound of Cindy's scream, and the feeling of her slipping away in her arms. Though haunted by the tragedy, she also became one of Cindy's strongest voices, ensuring her friend would never be forgotten. Her testimony about the attack not only revealed the brutal reality of crocodile danger but also highlighted Cindy's bravery and fight in her final moments. Over time, Cindy's story became more than just a cautionary tale, it became a rallying cry for both safety and remembrance. Her family and friends wanted the world to remember her not as a victim, but as a woman who lived fully, loved deeply, and left behind a legacy of joy and adventure. In the end, Cindy's name became a symbol of both the fragility of life and the enduring power of memory. Through the tears and tributes, one truth remained clear: Cindy Lee Waldron's spirit would live on in every story told about her, in every photo she captured, and in every heart that still beats with her memory. The story of Cindy Lee Waldron is more than a headline about a crocodile attack, it is a powerful reminder of the fragile line between human life and the raw forces of nature. Cindy's final moments on that moonlit beach revealed the haunting truth that even in places of beauty, danger can lurk silently beneath the surface. Yet her legacy is not defined only by how she died, but by how she lived, with courage, curiosity, and a heart full of love. For those who knew her best, Cindy was not just a tourist taken by a crocodile. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, and a dreamer. She was a woman who saw the world as something worth exploring, photographing, and cherishing. Her loss shook communities across New Zealand and Australia, but it also reminded countless others of the importance of respect, for nature, for life, and for the people we hold close. This tragedy sparked difficult but necessary conversations. Authorities once again stressed the importance of heeding safety warnings in crocodile territory. Wildlife experts reminded the public that saltwater crocodiles, though dangerous, are part of Australia's natural heritage, survivors of millions of years of evolution. For travelers and locals alike, Cindy's story became both a cautionary tale and a call to awareness, that in environments ruled by apex predators, caution is not optional, it is vital. But beyond the warnings and the lessons, there is the deeper, more human side of this story, the grief of a family, the trauma of a best friend, and the void left behind when a vibrant life is cut short. For Leanne Mitchell, the survivor of that night, the memory of holding Cindy's hand in those final moments is one she will carry forever. It is a bond of love and loyalty that even tragedy could not break. When people gather to remember Cindy, they do not speak only of fear or sorrow. They speak of her laughter, her kindness, and her adventurous spirit. They remember her photographs, the way she captured fleeting moments of beauty. They recall her warmth and her ability to make others feel seen and loved. These memories are what transform tragedy into legacy, what ensures that Cindy is not remembered simply for her death, but for the fullness of her life. The tragic events of that night remind us that we live in a world where beauty and danger often coexist. They teach us that nature is powerful, unpredictable, and worthy of respect. And they remind us that every moment with the people we love is precious, for we never know how quickly it can be taken away. Cindy's story is heartbreaking, but it also leaves behind a message: to live fully, to cherish deeply, and to honor those we lose by carrying their spirit forward. As the waves continue to lap against Thornton Beach, and as the rainforests of Queensland whisper with the sounds of life, Cindy's memory endures, not as a victim, but as a vibrant soul whose light continues to shine, even in the shadow of tragedy.